What is up, everybody? Keith, aka Gator Guy 231, and I am back for some soccer previews for you guys for tomorrow's EPL slate, or if you're watching this Saturday morning, then today's EPL slate. But been a good break in terms of just re-energizing. I wish it was a great break for my bankroll. Honestly, some of those international slates I thought I had a good grasp on and missed the mark on a few. But we are back to EPL. We are back to 7 hours of staggered starts. But I'm ready. I think this is a great slate to come back to. I felt so much of the season that we've kind of gotten some like crap slates with like lineups where you go, there isn't one guy I really want to roster here. I'll pay $9,500 for James Ward-Prowse or something like that. But this is a really good slate. We have plenty of studs. I think Draftkings actually was really, really fair on the pricing. We have the likes of Raheem Sterling. I think it was like $6,400. But a lot of this slate, in my opinion, is going to come down to: do you choose Bruno Fernandez as the biggest favorite on the slate versus a really, really shaky West Brom defense, or do you lock in the god that is Kevin De Bruyne? And look, if you remember, I did not pull the stats for this. Shame on me. But if you remember last season versus Spurs, I think he had like 21 crosses or something crazy like that when Spurs got up early and then just started defending. So this is a matchup that Kevin De Bruyne can definitely go off in. Or do you play him? Because I think that's going to decide a lot of cash lines. My gut feeling is that it's going to be Bruno is going to make a majority of lines. But, you can actually kind of poke some holes in Bruno. Reality is that Alex Telles is projected to be back from his COVID. I think he played one game in the UCL, got COVID, and then's been out. But, in that one game sample, we saw Alex Telles taking at least half of the sets from Bruno. So, is an 11K Bruno with only a set split, or maybe even not a lot of sets? Is he worth it over, like, let's say a Mahrez-less Man City, where Kevin De Bruyne is going to be over monopoly of set pieces? I think that's going to decide a lot of cash lines. So, as I go into that, bottom right of the screen, please hit subscribe button. I want to thank all of you soccer peeps out there. Without you all, we could not have gotten to as far as we are at FSI with over 1,100 subscribers. We want to keep growing this, so please hit the subscribe. If you know somebody that isn't subscribed, get them damn subscribed, so that we can keep growing this channel and bringing you guys awesome content. All right, so let's just kind of jump into the games and just the decisions. I don't know how I'm gonna do this format, to be honest with you. I'm excited to be back. I'm just gonna kind of just chat what I see on the slate. So our three games, this first game, which I think is really, really potentially critical to this slate, is Villa hosting Brighton. A lot of people are very much on the Villa train, which myself included, but I think we quickly forget that Brighton is actually a really good team. They play really, really good soccer, like very possession-based, have some DFS goodness with the likes of Solly March. I think he's going to be back, which is going to kind of take Pascal Gross out of play. But March is a nice player, 5,900. He's kind of hard to fit into builds, but I think he's very fair. Neil Malpay, after his chalk bust on that last two-game slate, you could very well see him show up with a goal here and be a really low-owned, high-upside play. Trossard, I would likely say, is back. Lamptey, who's overpriced but super fun player. That's on the Brighton side of things. On the Villa side, I think it's really interesting that Ross Barkley might become the cash chalk. I think that it's good chalk. He's been on monopoly pieces. I think a lot of people with like Ross Barkley hatred, we just think of Ross Barkley with Chelsea and kind of getting lost in the mix. But when he was with Everton, I think we all forget this. We were paying $9K for Ross Barkley pre-Gylfi Sigurdsson, in the Roberto Martinez, Lukaku days. Barkley was a very, very good number 10, was on monopoly set pieces, very active, and that's kind of the role he's getting at Villa now that he's supplanted Horahan from the lineup. He's taken Jack Grealish is not being taking sets, but Jack Grealish is obviously a great avenue for Barkley to get extra free kicks, to draw corners, and just somebody that, isn't afraid to take a shot. He's got Ollie Watkins. He's got so many good attackers, and Barkley gets to sit there in his 10 role and just kind of facilitate everything. So I think his price and matchup just make him a really, really nice play. I think a lot of people in cash games are going to lock him in. I think he's a great GPP play too. Obviously, we have plenty of goal upside. I think a really contrarian way to attack this game is kind of like a mini stack. You could obviously, I think putting Barkley and Grealish together, maybe with Ollie Watkins, if you can show up like 2-3 goals, you have a really, really good chance that a few of those goals have some part of those three. Those guys are so good and control so much of that offense. So like that's maybe a mini stack. You want to run it back with Solly March. We know that if Brighton goes down, Solly March is going to be throwing in a ton of crosses from his wingback position. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then I do think from the goalie perspective, I don't love talking about goalies, but Emi Martinez, if we remember when he first got over to Villa, multiple clean sheets. Brighton we have seen struggle finishing, but creating a ton of chances. So there's a chance that he just kind of goes low, very low owned. I think Lloris is going to be who a lot of people want to target, or they're going to say, well, if I'm going to spend up, let me go all the way up to David De Gea. I don't think West Brom is going to score. So Martinez sitting right there at 5K, I think kind of goes under owned. So that will be interesting. Also, do think that the Villa fullbacks are very fairly priced. Good cash game plays, Matty Cash and Matty Target. I guess we're the Matties for the Villa fullbacks, but both guys, neither one is likely to put in like a 13 cross performance, but Target we know has taken set pieces in the past, a very able crosser. And then back to his I almost said Norwich, Nottingham Forest days, Matty Cash was an active fullback, also used to play kind of an advanced role for them, so I think he is very fair. All right, so I think that covers that game. Let's jump into the middle game, which is, look, there's a really good chance that my bold call is I think Spurs beat City tomorrow. I think Spurs set up really, really well for the type of team and the type of players that can give City struggles. Look, we know City wants to be dominant in possession and kind of dictate game flow, but we also know that Jose's preferred way to play football is a very negative style of counterattacking, and we've seen Son and Kane be absolutely ruthless on the counter. So I really think that that's probably like one of my favorite GPP stacks is Son plus Kane, and maybe run it back with, or not run it back, play Hugo Lloris with them, and you could even run it back with KDB. Because look, if like Son and Kane hook up for a goal first 10 minutes, that's just going to set up the floodgates for a huge, huge KDB game. Like if you have roster KDB, you want Spurs to go ahead, because that's going to make De Bruyne just, have to throw in crosses and just be super active. So I love Son and Kane. I don't think that they, you probably can play them in cash, but I think in GPPs, I just really like that play. And that's probably it from Spurs. Like, I think Lloris and cash is going to be where a lot of people go. I know some people might mention Tanguy and Ndombele, just because like the sofa formations, kind of has him as a 10. I've watched them play a little bit. He's not playing as like a 10. It still, to me, looks a lot like a midfield 3, where he has a little bit more license to go box to box. But I think 3K obviously is fine. Like, you don't need much to get there, but he's not somebody I'm going out of my way to target. And we'll talk about United here in a minute, but I don't know if I want to lock up my roster spot on somebody like him and lose flexibility for the last game. I think one thing we've noticed with these EPL slates and these staggered starts is a lot of times the more flexibility, the better, especially when you have the biggest favorite on the slate as the last team to go. So I do want to have kind of maximum flexibility to maybe have 3-4 spots left for United at the end. All right, so I kind of went over Spurs. Let's go over City, because this is about as cheap as you're ever going to see non-KDB City pieces. You have Mahrez sub 8K. You have Sterling was the shocker to me at 6,400. I'm going to have a really hard time not clicking him in cash or clicking him in a lot of lineups. Even though I'm like my favorite goalie in the slate is Hugo Lloris, it's not like I'm rostering Hugo Lloris expecting a clean sheet win. Like, he can still get there with a few saves, and I do think Spurs has a really good chance to take this game. So, even if it's 2 saves, 1 goal conceded, but I get my win bonus, 7 points is great for a 4,200 keeper. So it doesn't make me all of a sudden not want to play Sterling. I think Aguero could get popular if he starts. He's only, I think, 5,900. He's not going to be fit for 90. It seems like they rushed him way back before he got hurt. And now that Jesus is back to healthy, I think Jesus played close to 90 both times for Brazil. I just don't see a way that Pep runs Aguero out for 90. So I would expect Jesus to start through the middle. Maybe Aguero subs on. I've never been a huge Gabby Jesus fan, especially for City. I just think those strikers become very, very goal dependent with the way their role is. But Sterling 6,400, I'm definitely about. Mahrez, if I could fit at 7,300, I think is fine if starting. I do wonder, especially with how good Torres was for Spain and how good Torres started playing at the end before the last break, if he's one that's starting like right wing spot. So I don't remember his price, but I think he's only mid eligible, but he's also a nice play. Just these City pieces are cheap. One thing I do want to mention with City though is their fullbacks have just no interest. I just have no interest in them at all. Especially if Cancelo is obviously a good player, but he's kind of priced up, and when he plays as a left back, he's just not getting crossing opportunities. And then Walker just sucks for DFS. He always has been pretty rough since he got to City for it. Yeah, he shows up with your occasional game and makes you forget that he's kind of a negative for DFS. But I think you just avoid these City fullbacks. Like I'd much rather play the Villa guys or Alex Telles in the final game. I guess for a punt, Ruben Diaz just showed up with 2 goals for Portugal. So you could do worse than a City center back. Also keep in mind, cool thing with City center backs is they actually come in with like close to a 2 DK floor just from all the accurate passes. We know that Jose's not going to try to be playing on the front foot here, so there's a good chance that you get like 100 accurate passes or like 80 to 100 from like Laporte and Diaz. So they kind of have a floor, even though it's not a great floor. It's a floor. So yeah, I think at 2,800, if you're looking for a punt, you can go that. But again, I think having roster flexibility for the final game is huge. All right, I think that wraps up a game. Final game, been teasing it, but United versus West Brom. West Brom is not good. Yeah, I think that's enough about West Brom. They're just not good. I think Pereira's back. I saw that he had been practicing with the team. So that should take away, if anybody was going to ask about Kravinovic, who took a monopoly of set pieces for them last game. He's sub 5K. If you didn't have Pereira, obviously sub 5K set taker. And look, here's the thing. United, while I think that United role in this game, it's not like United like dominates possession or plays some awesome football that that neutralizes their opponents. Like they're very able to give up DFS goodness. So I think you could play West Brom pieces. And I think, if you need roster flexibility and you all of a sudden, you were planning for, I don't know why you're playing for Juan Mata to be in, but let's say you're playing for Juan Mata to be in and he's not there, dropping down to a midfield piece from West Brom, whether it's Pereira, or, whether if Pereira's not in, and you have Kravinovic, or, you want to play, Chelsea guy, Conor Gallagher. Like, these guys are good players, and I'm not, like, I think United concede. I'm definitely not paying up for David De Gea. Like, I think if I pay up, like, I think I'm going to be in the minority, but if I pay up, I think it's for Emi Martinez from Villa, but I'm certainly not going up to De Gea. All right, hopefully I get this, had a call come in, so hopefully I got this break somewhat seamless, but I believe I was talking about West Brom pieces being just fine if you need to get it that way. But let's not focus on West Brom pieces. I think if you want to just like a GPP YOLO, playing like a Callum Robinson or Kieran Grant, I believe it's Kieran, don't hold me to it, but like playing for a West Brom goal from a striker will be super low owned. People aren't going to save spot for that. So GPP, of course. But, we're going to kind of talk optimal lens, which means we're going to be talking about United pieces. Let me just preface this by saying this. United have struggled in these type of spots before, and if they struggle getting on the score sheet here, I will not be shocked. Like, we've seen Solskjaer is so much better when United are playing from the back foot, are playing on the counter, are absorbing possession, and then, ruthlessly, like Bruno Fernandez breaks the lines. He, Rashford, and Martial are, running forward, like 3-on-2s, everything. Like, that's where United's at its best. They're not so good, when they are dominating possession. That said, West Brom is not very good at defending that type of stuff either. You have the likes of like Ivanovic, who I don't know how old he is, like 56. I think he's actually 36, but you get the point. Like, that's not the type of defender that I think is going to give somebody like Marcus Rashford a ton of fits. So I am going to be pro United, even though I am acknowledging that I could see routes where United struggle. Like, that's where I really like the likes of like playing Spurs and GPP, playing Son and Kane together, and those are my spin ups rather than United. The majority of people are going to be playing United despite them being the last game. So let's talk about those pieces. I do think Bruno Fernandez, in my opinion, is the best player in the slate. I mentioned that his role is less when Alex Telles is in, but his role is still huge, guys. Like, he is one of the most willing shooters in the EPL. He's still going to get crosses. He's still going to get dead balls. Some dead balls. He's on PKs, and we know United loves a PK. So I think there's still too much upside here. I think that he still has the highest upside on the slate, while I will give that I think KDB's floor with Telles in is better. I think when you add in the upside, I think you project Bruno Fernandez for a bigger game, and that's why I'm going to be locking in Bruno Fernandez. Alex Telles is somebody I am 100% planning for in my lineups, and I need to have. We know back from Porto days, Alex Telles is absolutely a DFS dream. One thing I think I'm really interested in seeing in this game is that if having a guy like Alex Telles, a good crosser, a good creative outlet on the wing, that is fine being wide. Like, yes, Marcus Rashford is a great player and a great person to have out on the wing, but Marcus Rashford wants to cut in. Like, he's a natural, more striker type. He's not wanting to stand out there and be serving in crosses. That's not his game. He wants to be on the end of the crosses. He wants to be, and on the low things to finish that off. So I think having Alex Telles out there and maybe having a lot more of the offense run from the left versus, when it was like Luke Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, it's just like, okay, what somewhat crappy fullback from an offensive standpoint. Like, both of them have great. Wan-Bissaka, already is one of the better defensive right backs in the EPL, but he leaves a lot to be desired offensively. So to have somebody like Alex Telles, I think could really be a breakthrough potentially for United. And I think from a DFS perspective, there's no way I'm going into the slate without having a plan to put in Alex Telles and to play him if in. Again, all the projections I've seen is for him to be in. He should have a share of set pieces. He will not have PKs, which he used to take for Porto. But I think that my first two clicks on my lineups are Bruno Fernandez and Alex Telles, and then just trying to figure out the rest from there. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the United forward situation. That's the part I think is going to be really intriguing, and where you really need to use your utility spot to help you here. So Marcus Rashford, I think, is the best play. He does come from a wide position where he gets shots off and gets a chance of fouls drawn and an occasional cross. But if Mason Greenwood's in, I really like that price. I think he's like 6,600. We've seen Greenwood plenty of times show up for goals. I believe he's back into fitness or into training, and it should not be an issue. Then you also have, so I think at his price, he makes a really, really nice optimal choice. You just have to make sure that you have the spot between Bruno, Telles, and let's say that you play Greenwood, that you have ability in that utility spot to either go up or down. So meaning up, like, okay, I didn't get Greenwood, I need to be able to go up to Rashford, or if I do have to play Greenwood, that I have somebody in that utility spot I still like, whether that's like Wan-Bissaka, maybe I'm like holding out for a West Brom piece. I think that's where you got to kind of have to tactically plan your lineups out. You could also go for like the likes of like a Cavani or Martial. I would assume that Martial has not lost his starting spot yet. It would be really interesting if Solskjaer ever decided to play Martial out on the right and then Cavani through the middle. I think that would be a really interesting look, if nothing else. But I do expect Martial to play as like the 9, and then Mata or Greenwood to start out on the right with Rashford on the left. I think all those forwards are in play. Rashford obviously, has your highest floor. probably followed by Greenwood, then Martial. I love them all. I think there's a really good chance that United could, should score 2-3 goals here. And that will wrap that up. All right, that's going to be the slate. I hope that this helped. Glad to be back breaking down EPL. Missed it. I say that now. I guess ask me at 4 p.m. if I still miss it, if I'm missing the cash line. But I do hope that this helps. Once again, if you enjoyed, please hit that thumbs up button, comment, especially if you can shoot any questions either tonight or before lineups are coming out tomorrow. I'm more than happy to answer in that comment section. So once again, Keith, aka Gator Guy 231. And with that, see ya!